In a quiet little mountain community, nestled deep among tall pine trees and surrounded by breathtaking views, life was usually peaceful. People moved there to escape the chaos of city living, seeking solitude and fresh air. But even in such a serene place, conflicts sometimes brewed beneath the surface. And when they did, they often involved one person, the head of the Homeowners Association, HOA, a woman known for her bossy attitude and knack for causing drama. This particular story begins with a writer who had recently bought a cozy cabin in the woods. The writer, a soft-spoken individual, loved everything about the cabin: its creaky wooden floors, the smell of aged timber, and the way sunlight streamed through the windows every morning. It was the perfect spot to focus on work and enjoy some much-needed peace. Life seemed ideal until the HOA president decided to make an unexpected visit, one crisp autumn morning, as the writer sat at the kitchen table sipping coffee and typing. Away on a laptop, there was a sudden knock at the gate outside. At first, the sound went unnoticed, drowned out by the clatter of fingers on keys. But then it came again, louder this time, more insistent. Setting the mug down, the writer walked over to the window and peeked outside. Standing at the gate was none other than the infamous HOA leader herself, clipboard in hand and wearing a determined expression. The writer sighed inwardly. Everyone in the neighborhood knew how pushy she could be. Whether it was enforcing strict rules about lawn maintenance or nitpicking minor details during inspections, she always found a reason to meddle. Today, however, felt different. There was something unusually aggressive about the way she stood tapping her foot, waiting impatiently for someone to answer. Curious but cautious, the writer pressed the intercom button near the gate. "Hello?" came the voice from inside the cabin. "Hi," the HOA leader replied curtly. "I need to come in. We're doing routine checks today." Routine checks? That was news to the writer. As far as anyone knew, no such schedule existed. Still, being polite, the writer responded calmly. "I'm sorry, but I wasn't informed about any inspection. Maybe we can reschedule?" "No, now works best," she shot back, her tone sharp and unyielding. Then, without waiting for permission, she reached into her bag and pulled out a ring of keys. "Don't worry, I have a master key. This won't take long." The writer frowned. A master key? Since when did the HOA have access to everyone's property? Feeling uneasy, the decision was made to deny entry. Through the intercom, the writer explained firmly that privacy was important and requested the HOA leader leave. Instead of complying, though, she rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath before trying each key on the lock. One by one, the keys failed to turn. Frustration grew visibly on her face as she jiggled them harder, muttering louder complaints. Finally, after several unsuccessful attempts, she gave up, glaring daggers at the camera mounted above the gate. "Fine," she snapped. "You'll regret this." With that parting threat, she turned and marched off, leaving behind an awkward silence. For a moment, the writer stood frozen, staring at the empty driveway. What had just happened? Was this really about an inspection, or was there something else going on? Shaking off the unsettling feeling, the writer returned to the desk, hoping the incident would blow over quickly. After all, people like her were all talk, right? But deep down, there was a nagging sense that this wasn't the end. Something told the writer that trouble was brewing and it might not stop at a locked gate. The morning after the unexpected visit from the HOA leader, life at the cabin seemed to return to its usual rhythm. The writer went about their day, trying to shake off the strange encounter. But just as they settled into another productive session of writing, the phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number, and for a moment, the writer hesitated before answering. "Hello?" came the cautious greeting. On the other end of the line was a voice that sounded official but calm. "Hi, this is Deputy Daniels from the local sheriff's department. I'm calling because we received a report regarding your property." The writer blinked in confusion. "A report? About what?" After a brief pause, they asked, "What kind of report?" Deputy Daniels explained that someone, likely the HOA leader, had called the police claiming the writer didn't belong on the property. Allegedly, the caller insisted the cabin wasn't legally owned by the writer and demanded law enforcement investigate. The accusation felt absurd, almost laughable. Still, the deputy assured them it wouldn't hurt to clear things up. "I've got all my documents ready," the writer replied firmly. They had purchased the cabin outright, with no loans or complications. There was no doubt in their mind that everything was above board. But even as they spoke, a nagging thought crept in. Why would the HOA leader go so far as to involve the police? Was she really that desperate to gain access to the property? After hanging up, the writer began gathering paperwork, title deeds, purchase agreements, tax records, all proof of ownership. Yet something still felt off. As they organized the files, they noticed movement out of the corner of their eye. At first, it was subtle, like a shadow passing quickly behind the living room curtains. But when they turned to look, nothing seemed out of place. Curious and slightly alarmed, the writer grabbed a flashlight and cautiously approached the hallway. That's when they saw him, a man sitting casually on the couch, sipping tea as if he owned the place. He looked up, startled but not guilty, and immediately raised his hands in surrender. Whoa, hold on," he said quickly. "I'm not here to cause trouble." It took a second to recognize him. It was Chief Thompson, the head of the local police department. His presence was unexpected, to say the least. What was he doing inside the cabin without permission? "What are you doing here?" the writer blurted out, still gripping the flashlight tightly. Chief Thompson stood up slowly, placing the teacup on the coffee table. "Look, I know this looks bad, but hear me out. I'm actually here to help you." "Help?" The word caught the writer off guard. "Help with what?" Before they could ask, the chief launched into an explanation that painted a much larger picture than anyone could have imagined. He revealed that the HOA leader had been using her position to bully residents into compliance for years. She'd overstep boundaries, demand unnecessary inspections, and impose ridiculous fines, all while acting like she ruled the neighborhood. But lately, her behavior had escalated. Several homeowners reported suspicious activity involving their properties, including forged documents and unauthorized changes to ownership records. "And now," Chief Thompson continued, "she's targeting you. That's why I'm here to protect your property and gather evidence against her." The writer listened intently, processing the information. None of this made sense. How could one person wield so much power? And why target their cabin specifically? The chief explained that the HOA leader had recently acquired a set of mysterious keys that weren't part of any official system. These keys allowed her to access properties across the community, often without residents knowing. Some believed she used them to plant false evidence or tamper with locks to support her claims. Before the conversation could continue, headlights swept across the windows. The writer glanced outside to see a patrol car pulling into the driveway. Out stepped the HOA leader herself, flanked by two uniformed officers. Her arrival sent a jolt of anxiety through the room. Clearly, she wasn't going to back down easily. "She's here," the writer whispered, turning to the chief. "What do we do?" Chief Thompson remained calm. "Let me handle this." As the front door opened and the HOA leader stormed in, visibly irritated, the tension in the room skyrocketed. She marched straight toward the writer, pointing an accusatory finger. "You shouldn't be here," she declared loudly. "These Officers will confirm I have every right to inspect this property." Her confidence faltered, however, when she spotted Chief Thompson standing nearby. For a split second, her face registered shock, followed by anger. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice rising. "That's enough," Chief Thompson interjected, his tone firm but composed. He addressed the group, explaining that the writer's ownership of the cabin was legitimate and indisputable. Any further attempts to harass or intimidate would result in legal consequences. The HOA leader sputtered, clearly caught off guard. She tried to argue, but her words carried less weight in the presence of the police chief. Finally, realizing she was defeated, for now she turned and stormed out, dragging the bewildered officers with her. Once she was gone, the writer exhaled deeply, feeling a mix of relief and unease. While the immediate threat had passed, it was clear this wasn't over. If the HOA leader was willing to call the police and barge into private property, what else might she try next? Chief Thompson stayed a little longer, offering reassurance. "We'll keep an eye on things," he promised. "But stay vigilant. People like her don't give up easily." As the evening wore on, the writer couldn't shake the feeling that they were caught in the middle of something bigger than themselves. The quiet mountain community, once seen as a refuge, now felt like a powder keg waiting to explode. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions for the writer. On one hand, they felt relieved that Chief Thompson had stepped in and put a stop to the HOA leader's antics, at least temporarily. But on the other hand, there was an unsettling realization that this wasn't just about a nosy neighbor trying to throw her weight around. This was something bigger, more calculated, and far more dangerous. Chief Thompson didn't leave things hanging after the confrontation at the cabin. He kept his promise to investigate further, and over the course of several meetings with the writer, he began piecing together a disturbing pattern. The HOA leader wasn't just meddling in people's lives because she enjoyed bossing them around. She was part of a much larger scheme, one that involved stolen land deeds, forged documents, and illegal property transfers. It started with small clues. For instance, the so-called master key she carried wasn't issued by the HOA or any official body. It belonged to a locksmith service known for questionable practices. When Chief Thompson dug deeper, he discovered that the same locksmith had been linked to multiple complaints across the region. People reported finding unfamiliar keys used to access their homes without permission, often followed by suspicious activity like missing documents or altered ownership papers. But it didn't stop there. As the chief probed further, he uncovered stories from other residents who'd fallen victim to similar tactics. One elderly couple shared how they'd returned from vacation to find their home listed for sale online. Another family revealed that their vacation cabin had mysteriously changed hands while they were away for the winter. In each case, the paperwork appeared legitimate, but none of the original owners remembered signing anything. The common thread? The HOA leader. She seemed to be orchestrating these operations, using her position to gain trust and exploit loopholes. Her favorite targets were vulnerable individuals, seniors, absentee landlords, or newcomers like the writer who might not yet understand the ins and outs of the community. And once she gained control of a property, it disappeared into a web of real estate transactions involving corrupt agents and shell companies. Chief Thompson laid out his findings during one of their late-night discussions at the cabin. Sitting across from the writer, he explained how the scam worked. First, the HOA leader would identify a target, someone unlikely to notice discrepancies right away. Then, she'd use her connections with the rogue locksmith to create duplicate keys, giving herself unauthorized access. From there, it was all about planting fake documents, pressuring homeowners into compliance, or outright stealing properties through forgery. And now, the chief said grimly, leaning forward, she set her sights on you. The writer. sat back stunned. All this time, they'd thought the HOA leader was simply being difficult, a nuisance, maybe even a bully. But this was criminal behavior, plain and simple. It was hard to wrap their head around the idea that someone could go to such lengths over a piece of property. Still, Chief Thompson wasn't ready to let her get away with it. Together, they devised a plan to catch her red-handed. The idea was risky but necessary. The writer would act as bait, allowing the HOA leader to believe she still had the upper hand. Meanwhile, Chief Thompson and his team would monitor the situation closely, gathering evidence to build a solid case against her. "I know it sounds scary," the chief admitted, "but if we play our cards right, we can shut her operation down for good." The writer hesitated. Playing along meant inviting danger into their life and possibly putting themselves in harm's way. But sitting back and doing nothing wasn't an option either. If they didn't stand up now, who knew what damage the HOA leader might cause? Next, with a deep breath, the writer agreed to cooperate. Over the following days, they subtly fed false information to the HOA leader, making it seem like they were struggling financially and considering selling the cabin. They even left hints around the property, like leaving blinds open or pretending to forget to lock the gate to make it appear vulnerable. Sure enough, the bait worked. Late one night, the writer heard faint noises coming from outside. At first, they thought it might be an animal rustling through the bushes. But then they noticed movement near the gate, a shadowy figure fumbling with tools. Grabbing a flashlight, they crept closer to investigate. There, under the dim glow of the security lights, stood the HOA leader herself. She hadn't come alone this time. She'd brought bolt cutters and what looked like a crowbar. Clearly, she wasn't taking chances anymore. If the lock wouldn't open, she planned to break it. Hidden cameras installed earlier captured every moment. The writer watched silently from the safety of the cabin, heart pounding as they waited for Chief Thompson's signal. Just as the HOA leader managed to pry the gate loose, headlights flooded the driveway. 2 police cars screeched to a halt, and officers poured out, surrounding her before she could react. Caught completely off guard, the HOA leader dropped her tools and tried to protest, claiming she had every right to be there. But the evidence spoke louder than her excuses. Not only did the cameras show her attempting to break in, but forensic analysis later confirmed her fingerprints on the forged documents tied to previous property thefts. As the officers handcuffed her and led her away, the writer finally allowed themselves to breathe again. Justice was served, or so it seemed. Little did they know, unraveling the full extent of the conspiracy would take weeks, even months, of painstaking investigation. But for now, the immediate threat was neutralized, and the mountain community could begin healing from the chaos she'd caused. The arrest of the HOA leader sent shockwaves through the quiet mountain community. For years, she had operated like a shadowy figure, lurking in the background and pulling strings without anyone fully understanding the extent of her reach. But now, with her schemes exposed and her actions caught on camera, the truth began to unravel, and it wasn't pretty. News of her arrest spread quickly, thanks in part to Chief Thompson's decision to hold a town hall meeting. He knew that transparency was key if he wanted to rebuild trust within the neighborhood. So one chilly evening, residents gathered at the community center, a small wooden building, nestled near the edge of the forest, to hear what he had uncovered. Room buzzed with murmurs as people took their seats. Some looked angry, others confused, but everyone shared a sense of unease. When Chief Thompson stepped up to the podium, the chatter died down, replaced by an expectant silence. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. Instead, he dove straight into the details, explaining how the HOA leader had been using her position to exploit homeowners for personal gain. "What we've discovered is not just negligent behavior," he said, his voice steady but firm. It's criminal. This wasn't about enforcing rules or maintaining property values, it was about greed. He went on to describe the pattern: forged documents, stolen keys, and illegal property transfers. He showed slides of evidence collected. During the investigation, photos of the fake deeds, records from the rogue locksmith, and even screenshots of online listings where stolen properties were being sold. Each revelation drew gasps from the crowd. Many attendees exchanged wide-eyed glances, whispering among themselves as they realized just how close this corruption had come to affecting them personally. Then came the moment when the real estate agent involved in the scheme was mentioned. According to Chief Thompson, the agent specialized in flipping distressed properties and had partnered with the HOA leader to target vulnerable homeowners. Together, they created a web of deception so intricate that it took months to untangle. The agent, however, wasn't sticking around to face consequences. As soon as word got out about the arrest, he vanished, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. Warrants were issued, but tracking him down would take time. As the presentation continued, something remarkable happened. One by one, residents stood up to share their stories. An elderly man recounted how his family cabin had been listed for sale without his knowledge. A young couple talked about returning from a trip abroad only to find strangers moving into their home. Even longtime locals admitted they'd suspected foul play, but never imagined the scale of the operation. For the writer, sitting quietly in the back of the room, it was both surreal and validating. Hearing others speak openly about their experiences made the ordeal feel less isolating. It also reinforced the importance of standing up against injustice, no matter how intimidating the opponent might seem. After the meeting ended, people lingered, exchanging contact information and vowing to support one another through the legal battles ahead. Some promised to attend court hearings, while others offered resources to help recover stolen properties. There was a newfound sense of solidarity, a shared determination to reclaim their community from the chaos inflicted upon it. But despite the progress, the fallout wasn't over yet. In the days following the town hall, more victims came forward, each adding another layer to the investigation. Documents surfaced linking the HOA leader to other crimes beyond property theft, including embezzlement of HOA funds and harassment charges. Every new piece of evidence painted a clearer picture of someone who believed herself untouchable, someone who thought she could manipulate the system indefinitely. Meanwhile, the writer found themselves reflecting on everything that had transpired. Life at the cabin, once a sanctuary of peace and creativity, had become a battleground. Yet, in a strange way, the experience had taught them resilience. They learned to navigate challenges they never anticipated, leaning on unexpected allies. Like Chief Thompson and the growing network of neighbors turned friends. Still, there were moments of doubt. What if the HOA leader managed to wriggle free? What if her accomplices retaliated? These thoughts kept the writer alert, reminding them that vigilance was crucial. But they also reminded themselves of something else. Justice, though slow, was worth fighting for. One afternoon, as they sat outside watching sunlight filter through the trees, the writer received a call from Chief Thompson. His tone was upbeat, almost triumphant. "We got another break in the case," he said. Investigators had traced financial transactions linked to the HOA leader, uncovering accounts filled with money funneled from illegal property deals. More importantly, they'd identified several shell companies used to launder those funds. "This is big," the chief added. "It gives us leverage not just locally but potentially statewide. Folks higher up are starting to pay attention." Hanging up, the writer felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this nightmare was nearing its end. And perhaps, once all the dust settled, The mountain community could finally heal, not just from the damage caused by one person's greed, but from the fractures it revealed in their collective trust. Life wouldn't go back to exactly how it was before. Too much had changed for that, but there was comfort in knowing that, together, they had faced a storm and emerged stronger. The weeks that followed the HOA leader's arrest were a whirlwind of activity, both for the writer and the rest of the mountain community. The legal process dragged on, with hearings and depositions becoming a regular part of life. Lawyers pored over documents, investigators traced financial trails, and victims recounted their stories in courtrooms where every detail mattered. It was exhausting, but it also brought a sense of closure bit by bit. Justice was being served. For the writer, the experience became a lesson in resilience. At first, they had felt like an outsider looking in, unsure of how to navigate the tangled mess created by someone else's greed. But as time went on, they realized they weren't alone. Neighbors who had once been strangers now felt like family. They shared meals, exchanged updates about the case, and supported one another through sleepless nights. What started as a personal battle turned into a collective fight, a reminder that standing together could overcome even the most daunting challenges. One particularly memorable day came when the real estate agent involved in the scheme was finally tracked down. Authorities arrested him in a bustling city hundreds of miles away, living under an assumed name. He tried to deny his involvement, claiming he'd merely facilitated transactions without knowing their true nature. But the evidence told a different story. Bank statements, emails, and witness testimonies painted a clear picture of his role in the conspiracy. When news of his capture reached the mountain community, there was a palpable sense of relief. Another piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. Back at the cabin, life slowly began to return to normal, or at least as close to normal as possible after such upheaval. The writer noticed subtle changes in themselves. They were more cautious. Now, always double-checking locks and keeping important documents secure. Yet, despite the lingering wariness, there was also a newfound appreciation for the little things: the sound of birdsong in the morning, the way sunlight danced on the lake's surface, the quiet hum of peace that settled over the woods each evening. These moments reminded them why they had chosen this place in the first place. Chief Thompson remained a steady presence throughout the ordeal. His dedication to uncovering the truth earned him widespread admiration among residents. Some joked that he should run for mayor, while others simply thanked him for restoring their faith in local law enforcement. For his part, the chief shrugged off the praise, insisting he was just doing his job. Still, it was clear that the case had left its mark on him too. Sometimes, he told the writer during one of their conversations, you realize that your badge isn't just about enforcing laws, it's about protecting people. As the legal proceedings wrapped up, the HOA leader faced multiple charges, including fraud, forgery, and breaking and entering. Her attempts to defend herself fell flat in the face of overwhelming evidence. In the end, she received a sentence that reflected the severity of her crimes. While some might have argued it wasn't enough, the writer found solace in knowing she wouldn't be able to hurt anyone else anytime soon. The aftermath of the scandal brought significant changes to the community. Residents banded together to reform the HOA, ensuring it functioned transparently and fairly moving forward. New leadership was elected, comprising individuals committed to serving rather than controlling. Rules were reviewed, simplified, and communicated clearly to all members. The emphasis shifted from micromanagement to fostering a spirit of cooperation and mutual respect. For the writer, the cabin once again became a haven of retreat where creativity flowed freely, unburdened by fear or uncertainty. They returned to their work with renewed energy, inspired by the strength and unity they'd witnessed in their neighbors. Even the gate outside, which had once symbolized intrusion and conflict, now stood as a reminder of perseverance. It bore scratches from the bolt cutters used during the attempted break-in, but instead of replacing it, the writer decided to leave it as it was a testament to what they had endured and overcome. On weekends, neighbors gathered for barbecues and bonfires, sharing laughter and stories under star-filled skies. Conversations often drifted back to the events of the past months, but there was no bitterness, only gratitude for the bonds forged through adversity. Children played tag near the lake, dogs chased sticks thrown into the water, and adults swapped tips on gardening and home repairs. Life in the mountains had regained its rhythm, though it carried echoes of lessons learned. Chief Thompson occasionally joined these gatherings, blending seamlessly into the mix. People thanked him not only for solving the case, but also for reminding them of the power of trust and collaboration. "This community saved itself," he would say modestly. "I just helped point you in the right direction." In quieter moments, the writer reflected on everything that had transpired. The ordeal had tested their patience, courage, and faith in humanity, but it had also revealed unexpected strengths. They discovered reserves of determination they didn't know they possessed and learned to lean on others when needed. Most importantly, they emerged with a deeper understanding of what it meant to belong, not just to a place, but to a group of people united by shared values and experiences. Late one evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, the writer sat on the porch with a cup of tea. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, carrying with it the faint scent of pine. Somewhere in the distance, a loon called out across the lake, its haunting melody echoing through the stillness. It was peaceful here, imperfectly so, but undeniably beautiful. The scars of the past lingered, yes, but they were part of the story. Now, and like any good story, this one ended not with perfection, but with hope. Hope that the future would hold brighter days, stronger connections, and a community ready to face whatever came next together.